The signature on the divorce papers was supposed to set her free. Instead, it became his greatest mistake. Adrian Vallon, ruthless mafia boss, feared by men who'd never known mercy, believed he was giving his wife the gift of escape. But Lena Carter wasn't running from him. She was running with something he didn't know existed, their child. When he discovered the truth, it was already too late. She'd vanished. And in the criminal underworld, disappearing doesn't mean safety. It means becoming prey. This is their story. Watch until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story reaches. Now, let's begin. The pen felt heavier than any weapon Adrian Vallon had ever held. He stared at the divorce papers spread across the mahogany table in his study, the gold nib of his fountain pen hovering above the signature line. Outside, rain hammered against the windows of the estate, a relentless percussion that matched the dull ache building behind his ribs. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the room in brief, violent bursts. Across from him sat Lena. She wasn't crying. That's what gutted him most. Her hands were folded in her lap, fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her dark hair fell around her face in soft waves, obscuring her expression, but her spine was straight, her jaw was set. She looked like she'd already left. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. Adrian's fingers tightened around the pen. "Yes, I do." "Adrian, don't." His voice came out rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat, forced himself to meet her eyes. They were gray-green, the color of the ocean before a storm. He'd always loved that about her. "This isn't a discussion, Lena. It's done." Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment he thought she might argue, fight, scream, anything but this terrible, suffocating calm. Instead, she nodded once. The pen scratched across paper. Adrian Vallon. The signature looked foreign to him, too neat, too final. He slid the documents across the table. Lena picked up her own pen. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed. Lena Carter. She'd be taking back her maiden name, erasing 3 years of marriage as if they'd never happened. "There," Adrian said, his voice hollow. "You're free." Lena looked at him then, really looked at him, and something flickered in her expression, something he couldn't name. Grief? Anger? Relief? "Free," she repeated, and the word sounded like an accusation. She stood, smoothing down her simple black dress. No jewelry. She'd stopped wearing the diamond necklace he'd given her weeks ago, along with the wedding ring. Everything he'd ever bought her had been returned to his office in a neat cardboard box, like she was purging evidence of him from her life. Maybe she was. "I'll have someone bring your things tomorrow," Adrian said, rising from his chair. Professional, distant, like they were business associates concluding a transaction. "The settlement we discussed. I don't want your money." "Lena, I don't want anything from you, Adrian." Her voice didn't rise, but the words hit like bullets. "I never did." That wasn't true. Once she'd wanted him. He remembered the way she used to look at him in those early days, like he was something more than the monster everyone else saw, like he could be good. She'd been wrong. "Take it anyway," he said. "Please." Lena's throat worked as she swallowed. For a moment he thought she'd refuse, then she nodded, just barely. "Goodbye, Adrian." She turned toward the door. He should let her go. That was the plan, the right thing, the only thing. "Lena." She stopped, her hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. Adrian's mind raced for something to say, something that would make this less brutal, less final. But there was nothing. No words existed that could bridge the chasm between what he was and what she deserved. "I'm sorry," he managed. Her shoulders tensed. For which part? For all of it, he wanted to say. For bringing you into this world. For loving you when I had no right. For being too weak to walk away sooner. But he said nothing. Lena opened the door and walked out of his life. The silence that followed was absolute. Adrian stood in the study for a long time after she left, staring at the closed door. Rain continued its assault on the windows. Thunder rolled across the estate grounds. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. He moved to the bar cart and poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, then 6. The glass was empty before he registered drinking it. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his second in command, the closest thing Adrian had to a friend. Tall, scarred, dangerous, loyal to a fault. "It's done?" Marcus asked. Adrian poured another drink. "It's done." "You look like hell." "Thoughtful observation?" Marcus stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "You want to tell me why you just let the best thing in your life walk out that door?" Adrian drained half the glass. "Because she deserves better than this." "Then what? You?" "Yes." "That's bullshit." "Watch your mouth, Marcus." "No." Marcus crossed his arms. "I've known you 15 years, watched you build this empire from nothing, seen you make hard calls that would break other men. But he gestured toward the door. "This is cowardice." Adrian's hand tightened on the glass. "You think I don't know that?" "Then why?" "Because Dmitry Volkov put a bullet through my windshield last week." Adrian's voice was quiet, lethal. 3 inches from my head. The week before that, someone firebombed the club on 5th. You think those are coincidences? Marcus's jaw tightened. Volkov's been pushing boundaries for months. He's escalating, and he knows the fastest way to hurt me is through her. Adrian set down the glass before he shattered it. Lena's been followed twice that we know of. Maybe more. How long before following turns into something worse? So you push her away instead of protecting her. I can't protect her. The words tore out of him, raw and desperate. Not from this. Not from what I am. Every day she's with me is another day she's a target. Another day she's drowning in blood money and violence and... He broke off, pressing his palms against the desk. I can't watch her die because of me. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Did you tell her any of this? No. Why not? Because if I did, she'd stay, and I need her to go. The older man shook his head slowly. You're a fool, Adrian. Probably. She loves you. Adrian's chest constricted. I know, and you love her. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Marcus sighed. What do you want me to do? Put surveillance on her. Discreet. Make sure Volkov's men don't get within a mile of her. Adrian straightened, slipping back into the cold efficiency that had built his reputation. And transfer $5 million into her account. More if she needs it. She said she didn't want... I don't care what she said. Do it. Marcus nodded and turned to leave. Marcus? The man paused. If anything happens to her... Adrian's voice dropped to something dark and promising. I'll burn this entire city to the ground. Understood. The door closed. Adrian was alone again. He picked up the divorce papers, staring at their signatures, hers so small and precise, his bold and jagged. Evidence of an ending. Then he opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out a photograph. It was from their wedding day. Small ceremony, just the two of them, and a judge. Lena wore a simple white dress. She was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, eyes bright with joy. He'd looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered in the world, because she was. Adrian set the photo down and picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over her name in his contacts. Don't let her go. He set the phone down, then picked it up again. Put it down. This was the right choice, the only choice. She'd be safe now. She'd find someone better. Someone who didn't have blood on his hands and enemies circling like sharks. Someone who could give her the quiet, normal life she'd always wanted. The thought made him want to put his fist through the wall. Instead, he poured another drink and watched the rain. Lena made it to the end of the driveway before her composure cracked. She sat in her car, a modest sedan she'd bought with her own money, refusing everything Adrian had offered, and gripped the steering wheel until her hands ached. The guard at the gate had already opened it for her, waiting for her to drive through. She couldn't move. Behind her, the estate loomed like something out of a Gothic novel. Massive, imposing, beautiful, and terrible all at once. She'd lived there for 3 years, and it had never felt like home. But leaving felt like ripping out her own heart. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Maya. Done? Lena typed back, yes, coming over, soon. She set the phone down and pressed her hands against her stomach, still flat, showing nothing. But she knew. Had known for 3 weeks now. The pregnancy test had been positive on the first try. Then the second. Then the third. Because surely there was a mistake. Surely this wasn't happening. Not now. Not when everything was falling apart. But there was no mistake. She was 8 weeks pregnant with Adrian Valen's child. And he didn't know. Couldn't know. Lena had rehearsed telling him 100 times, imagined his reaction, surprise, maybe joy, maybe fear. She'd pictured them figuring it out together, making it work somehow despite the chaos of his world. Then Dmitry Volkov's men had followed her to the grocery store. She'd noticed them immediately, 2 men in a black SUV, staying 3 cars back but never losing her. They'd followed her all the way home, parking across the street for an hour before driving away. She'd told Adrian. He'd gone quiet in that dangerous way of his, jaw tight, eyes cold. The next day, he'd increased security around her. The day after that, he'd barely spoken to her. And the day after that, he'd asked for a divorce. No explanation, no discussion, just a quiet, terrible finality in his voice when he said, "This isn't working, Lena. We both know it." She'd wanted to fight, to demand answers, to make him look at her and explain how he could just give up on them. But she'd seen something in his eyes that stopped her. Fear. Adrian Valen, the man who'd built a criminal empire through sheer will and violence, who'd stared down rival bosses and corrupt politicians without flinching, was afraid. Not of Volkov, not of his enemies, of losing her. That's when Lena understood. He wasn't pushing her away because he didn't love her. He was pushing her away because he did. And that made everything so much worse. Because now she had to make a choice. Stay and tell him about the baby. Knowing he'd never let her go. Knowing she'd be a target for every enemy he'd ever made. Knowing their child would grow up in a world of violence and fear. Or leave. Disappear. Raise this baby somewhere far away from Adrian's empire and the darkness that came with it. It wasn't really a choice at all. Lena put the car in drive and pulled through the gate. She didn't look back. 2 hours later, she was in her sister's apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes and the smell of chamomile tea. Maya sat across from her on the worn couch, studying her face with the kind of intensity only siblings could manage. "You didn't tell him." It wasn't a question. Lena shook her head. "Lena, I can't, Maya." She wrapped her hands around the mug of tea, seeking its warmth. "You didn't see his face when those men followed me. He was terrified. And Adrian doesn't get terrified. So, his solution was to divorce you?" "His solution was to protect me." Lena's voice cracked slightly. "In the only way he knows how." Maya leaned forward. "And what about you? What do you want?" What did she want? She wanted Adrian. Wanted the version of him she'd glimpsed in quiet moments. The man who brought her coffee in bed, who listened to her talk about her day, who looked at her like she was the only good thing in his life. But that man came with shadows, with enemies, with a world so violent and unforgiving that loving him was a death sentence. "I want my baby to be safe," Lena said quietly. "Then you need to leave, really leave. Not just the estate, the city, maybe the state." "I know." "Do you have a plan?" Lena pulled a folder from her bag and set it on the coffee table. Inside were documents, a new driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, all bearing the name Elena Martinez. Maya's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I've been planning this for a while." Lena's voice was steady now, clinical. "Before the divorce papers, before everything fell apart, I had a feeling it would come to this eventually." "Jesus, Lena. There's a town in Oregon, small, quiet. I found a rental online, month-to-month lease, no questions asked. I start a new job as a waitress next week." "A waitress?" Maya's tone was flat. "It's honest work. You have a degree in art history." "Which is useless in witness protection." Lena managed a weak smile. "I'll be fine, Maya. I need to disappear." Her sister was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Does Adrian have the resources to find you?" "Yes." "Will he look?" Lena thought about the way he'd signed those divorce papers. The slight tremor in his hand, the tightness around his eyes, the way he'd said "I'm sorry" like the words were being dragged out of him. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me hopes he won't. Part of me hopes he will." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Maya reached across the couch and took her hand. "When do you leave?" "Tonight." "Tonight?" "Lena, I can't risk staying longer. If Adrian changes his mind, if he comes looking for me—" She shook her head. "I need to be gone before that happens." Her sister's eyes were wet. "I'm going to miss you." I'll miss you too. Lena squeezed her hand. But this is the right thing, the only thing. What if it's not? What if you're making a mistake? Then it's my mistake to make. They sat together in silence, holding hands, while the clock on the wall counted down the minutes until Lena's old life ended and her new one began. At midnight, Lena loaded her car with everything she owned. 2 suitcases of clothes, a box of books, and a small wooden jewelry box her mother had given her before she died. Maya stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. "Call me when you get there," she said. "Burner phone or whatever. Just let me know you're okay." "I will." "And Lena?" Maya's voice was thick. "If you need anything, money, help, anything at all, you call me. Promise." "I promise." They hugged, fierce and tight, and Lena let herself cry for just a moment. Then she pulled away, wiped her eyes, and got in the car. The drive out of the city took an hour. Lena watched the skyline disappear in her rear-view mirror. All those glittering lights and towering buildings, the empire Adrian had built and ruled. Somewhere in one of those buildings, he was probably working, or drinking, or staring at divorce papers and wondering if he'd made the right choice. She hoped he'd move on, find someone else. Be happy. She hoped he'd never forget her. Both thoughts hurt equally. Lena drove through the night, heading west toward a new life, toward safety and anonymity and a future her child would never have in Adrian Vallen's world. She didn't know that behind her, in that city of lights and shadows, Adrian was already falling apart. She didn't know that in 6 months, when he discovered she'd been pregnant, his grief would turn into obsession. She didn't know that running would save her life, and damn his. All she knew was the road ahead and the life growing inside her. So she drove, and she didn't look back. 3 days later, Adrian stood in the empty bedroom that had been Lena's and tried to remember how to breathe. Her clothes were gone from the closet, her books removed from the shelves. Even the faint scent of her perfume had faded, replaced by the sterile smell of cleaning products. It was like she'd never existed. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "We have a problem." Adrian didn't turn around. "What kind of problem?" "Lena's gone." "I know she's gone. I divorced her, remember?" "No, I mean gone. Left the city. Surveillance lost her 2 days ago." Now Adrian turned. "What?" "She drove to her sister's apartment the night of the divorce, stayed a few hours, then got in her car and headed west. Our guys followed for about 50 miles, then she pulled some kind of maneuver, switched cars or took back roads, we're not sure. Point is, she disappeared." Adrian's pulse kicked up. "Find her. We're trying. But boss, she doesn't want to be found, and she's smart enough to make it difficult." "I don't care how difficult it is. I want every resource we have on this, understand?" Marcus hesitated. "You sure that's wise? You divorced her to keep her safe. Finding her kind of defeats the purpose. I need to know she's okay. And if she's not?" Adrian's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Then I need to know that too." "All right." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'll put the word out. But Adrian, if she ran this hard, there's a reason. Maybe you should ask yourself what she's running from." "She's running from me? Or from something else entirely?" The words hung in the air between them. Adrian thought about the way Lena had looked at him across the table, that strange expression he couldn't name. Thought about how she'd refused his money, his help, everything. Thought about how she'd said, "I don't want anything from you, Adrian. I never did." What if Marcus was right? What if she wasn't just running from him, but towards something, or someone? The thought made his chest tighten with something ugly and possessive. He crushed it down. "Just find her," he said. "I don't care what it cost." Marcus nodded and left. Adrian stood alone in the empty room and felt the weight of his mistake settling over him like a shroud. He'd thought letting her go would keep her safe. Instead, he'd lost her completely, and for the first time in his carefully controlled life, Adrian Vallen had no idea what to do next. 6 weeks later, the diner in Sisters, Oregon smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. Elena now, she had to remember, tied her apron and started her shift, smiling at customers and taking orders and pretending her entire body didn't ache from being on her feet for 8 hours straight. The morning sickness had finally passed, thank God. But now she was dealing with the exhaustion that came with the second trimester. Her doctor, a kind woman who didn't ask too many questions, said it was normal. Nothing about this felt normal. Lena lived in a small studio apartment above a bookstore, worked double shifts at the diner, and spent her evenings reading pregnancy books and trying not to think about Adrian. She failed at that last part constantly. Sometimes she'd catch herself reaching for her phone, wanting to call him, to hear his voice, to tell him about the baby and how scared she was and how much she missed him. But she never did, because every time she thought about going back, she remembered those men in the SUV, remembered the fear in Adrian's eyes, remembered that loving him meant living in constant danger. So she stayed in Sisters, Oregon, built a quiet life, made friends with the other waitresses, started showing, just slightly, and told herself this was enough. It had to be. Meanwhile, across the country, Adrian sat in his office, staring at the file on his desk. 3 months of searching. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on private investigators, hackers, informants. Every contact he had, every favor he could call in. Nothing. Lena Carter had vanished like smoke. No credit card usage, no phone records, no digital footprint of any kind. She'd either died or become a ghost. Adrian refused to believe the first option, which left the second. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Yeah? Found something? Maybe. Adrian sat up straighter. What? A woman matching Lena's description was spotted in a town called Sisters, Oregon, working at a diner, going by the name Elena Martinez. Adrian's heart stuttered. You're sure? 70%. The investigator sent photos, but they're from a distance. Could be her. Could be someone who looks like her. Send me the photos. Already did. Adrian opened his email with shaking hands. The images loaded slowly, grainy surveillance shots from across the street. A woman in a waitress uniform. Dark hair pulled back, slender build, and a small but unmistakable curve to her stomach. The world tilted. Adrian? You still there? His voice came out raw. How pregnant does she look in these photos? A pause. I don't know. Maybe 4 or 5 months. Why? Adrian did the math. 4 or 5 months pregnant meant she'd conceived right before the divorce. Meant she'd known. Meant she'd walked away carrying his child and never said a word. The rage that swept through him was matched only by the grief. She'd been pregnant. All this time she'd been pregnant and alone, and he hadn't known, hadn't been there, hadn't... Boss, what do you want me to do? Adrian forced himself to think, to plan. If Lena was in Oregon, she'd run because she thought it was safer than being with him. If he showed up now, demanding answers, demanding she come back, he'd prove her right. He'd prove that he was exactly the kind of man she needed to escape from. But she was pregnant with his child. His child. The magnitude of that hit him like a physical blow. He was going to be a father. Lena was going to have his baby. And she was doing it alone because he'd pushed her away. Don't approach her, Adrian said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. But keep eyes on her, 24/7. If she needs anything, money, medical care, anything, make sure she gets it, anonymously. You're not going to talk to her? Not yet. Maybe not ever. Maybe the kindest thing he could do was let her believe he'd never found her, let her raise their child in peace, away from his world. The thought made him want to put his fist through the desk. But this wasn't about what he wanted. It was about what Lena needed and what their baby deserved. Keep me updated, Adrian said, every day. I want to know she's safe. Understood. He ended the call and stared at the photos again. Lena looked different, hair longer, face a little fuller, but her eyes were the same. Tired, sad, determined. She'd made her choice. Now he had to live with it. Adrian closed his laptop and poured himself a drink he wouldn't finish. Outside his window, the city sprawled in all directions. His empire, built on blood and violence and power. And somewhere 3,000 miles away, the only woman he'd ever loved was building a life without him. He'd given her freedom. It was killing him. But he'd do it anyway. Because that's what love was, wasn't it? Sacrifice, letting go, even when it destroyed you. Adrian raised his glass in a silent toast to the woman he'd lost and the child he'd never meet. Then he drank alone and tried not to think about what he'd given up. 4 months later. Sisters, Oregon. Lena's water broke during the lunch rush. One moment she was taking an order for pancakes, the next she was standing in a puddle, gripping the edge of the table as contractions ripped through her. "Oh my God," the customer said. "Are you?" "I'm fine." Lena forced a smile even as pain lanced through her abdomen. "Just need to... Excuse me for a moment." She made it to the back room before her knees buckled. Sarah, the head waitress, caught her. "Jesus, Elena, is it time?" Lena could only nod. The next hours blurred together, the hospital, the delivery room, pain that rewrote her understanding of the word, nurses encouraging her to push, to breathe, to hold on just a little longer. And through it all, a single thought. I wish Adrian were here. She hated herself for it, hated that even now, in the most important moment of her life, part of her ached for the man she'd left behind. But then the doctor said, one more push, and Lena bore down with everything she had left. A baby's cry filled the room. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, smiling. "A beautiful baby girl." They placed her on Lena's chest, tiny and red-faced and screaming her lungs out. Lena looked down at her daughter and felt something crack open in her chest. "Hi," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hi, baby. I'm your mom." The baby quieted at her voice, blinking up at her with dark eyes. Adrian's eyes. The resemblance hurt and healed in equal measure. "Have you chosen a name?" the nurse asked. Lena had spent months debating this. Part of her wanted to name the baby after her mother. Part of her wanted something completely new. A fresh start for a fresh life. But looking at her daughter now, she knew there was only one name that fit. "Mila," she said softly. "Her name is Mila." Mila Grace Martinez. A new identity for a new life. No connection to Adrian Vallon or the world he represented. Just a mother and daughter, starting over. Lena held her baby close and let herself cry. For joy, for grief, for everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained. And 3,000 miles away, Adrian Vallon received a one-word text from Marcus. Girl. He read it 17 times before the meaning sank in. He had a daughter he'd never hold, never meet, never know. Adrian closed his eyes and felt something inside him break that would never heal. But he didn't get on a plane, didn't demand answers, didn't even call, because Lena had made her choice, and he'd live with it, even if it killed him, even though it already was. The first year of Mila's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and small miracles. Lena learned to function on 3 hours of sleep, learned to change diapers with one hand while holding a coffee cup in the other, learned that the sound of her daughter's laugh could make even the hardest days bearable. She also learned that running never really stopped. Every time the bell above the diner door chimed, her heart jumped. Every black car that drove past her apartment made her stomach clench. Every stranger who looked at her twice sent her mind spinning through escape routes and contingency plans. It was exhausting, but Mila was worth it. The baby had Adrian's eyes, dark and intense, even at 10 months old. Sometimes Lena would catch herself staring at her daughter, seeing traces of the man she'd left behind. The stubborn set of her jaw when she didn't want to eat her vegetables. The way she studied new things with absolute focus. It hurt, but it also felt like having a piece of him she could keep. "She's getting so big," Sarah said one afternoon, bouncing Mila on her hip while Lena finished her shift. "What is she now? Almost a year?" 11 months next week. Lena wiped down the counter, keeping one eye on her daughter. "Growing too fast." "They always do." Sarah smiled at Mila, who grabbed her nose with a delighted squeal. "You ever think about her father?" Lena's hand stilled on the counter. "Sometimes." "Does he know about her?" "No." Sarah's expression softened. "That must be hard. It's safer this way." "Safe for who? Her or you?" The question landed like a punch. Lena forced herself to keep moving, to finish wiping the counter, to not let Sarah see how close to the bone that had cut. "Both," she said finally. Sarah didn't push. That was one of the things Lena appreciated about her. She knew when to let things go. But the question lingered long after her shift ended, long after she'd carried Mila up the stairs to their apartment and settled her into the crib, long after darkness fell and silence wrapped around her like a shroud. Was this really safer? Or was she just running from a life that had scared her? Lena didn't have an answer, so she did what she'd been doing for a year. She pushed the thoughts away, made herself a cup of tea she wouldn't finish, and tried to sleep. She didn't know that 3,000 miles away, Adrian was staring at surveillance photos of her daughter and drinking himself numb. She didn't know that he'd memorized every detail of Mila's face from grainy, long-distance shots. She didn't know that he'd set up a trust fund in her name, millions of dollars his daughter would inherit on her 18th birthday, along with a letter explaining everything. All Lena knew was the weight of her choices and the fear that never quite left. So she held her daughter a little tighter and told herself this was enough. It had to be. Across the country, Adrian Vallon was learning that obsession and grief made terrible companions. He'd turned surveillance into a ritual. Every morning, Marcus delivered a folder containing photos and updates about Lena and Mila. Every evening, Adrian studied them like they held the secrets to the universe. Mila's first smile. Her first tooth. The day Lena took her to the park and let her feel grass for the first time. He'd missed all of it. "You look like death," Marcus said, dropping the latest folder on Adrian's desk. "When's the last time you slept?" "I sleep. Passing out drunk doesn't count." Adrian didn't argue. He opened the folder and immediately focused on the newest photo. Mila sitting in a high chair, face covered in what looked like mashed bananas, grinning at the camera. His daughter. The word still felt foreign, impossible. "She has your eyes," Marcus observed. "She has Lena's smile." "Yeah, well, she won't have either if you keep going down this path." Marcus crossed his arms. "You're falling apart, Adrian. The men are noticing. Volkov's noticing." "Let him notice." "That's a mistake. He's been quiet for too long. That usually means he's planning something." Adrian finally looked up from the photo. "Then we stay ready." "Hard to stay ready when our boss is 3,000 miles away mentally." "I'm here." "Your body's here. Your head's in Oregon." Marcus leaned against the desk. "Look, I get it. You made a call, and it cost you. But you can't keep living like this, watching from a distance, torturing yourself with pictures." "What would you have me do? Show up on her doorstep and demand she come back?" "Maybe." "And put her and Mila directly in the line of fire? Make her a target again?" "You don't know that would happen." "I know exactly what would happen." Adrian's voice turned cold. "Volkov would use them against me. Every enemy I've ever made would see them as leverage. Lena ran because she was smart enough to understand that. Or she ran because you pushed her away without giving her a choice." The words hit like a slap. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Get out." "Adrian, I said get out." Marcus held his gaze for a long moment, then shook his head and left. Alone again, Adrian returned to the photos. There was one of Lena holding Mila, both of them laughing at something off camera. The joy on Lena's face was so pure, so unguarded that it made his chest ache. She looked happy, happier than she'd ever looked with him. Maybe that was answer enough. Adrian closed the folder and locked it in his desk drawer with all the others. Then he poured himself a drink and stood at the window, watching the city that had given him everything except the one thing that mattered. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Adrian Vallon?" The voice was unfamiliar, male, accented. "Who is this?" "A friend with information you'll want to hear." Adrian's instincts sharpened. "I'm not interested in games." "Not a game, a warning." The man paused. "Dmitry Volkov knows about your daughter." The world stopped. "Say that again." "Your daughter, Mila, living in Sisters, Oregon with her mother. Volkov knows." The voice was matter-of-fact, almost bored. "He's planning to make a move within the month." Adrian's blood turned to ice. "Who the hell is this?" "Someone who thinks you're a better option than Volkov, but that won't matter if you don't act fast." "If you're lying." "I'm not. Check your email. I sent proof." The line went dead. Adrian's hand shook as he opened his laptop. The email was there. No subject line, no message. Just a series of photos. Volkov's men outside Lena's apartment, following her to work, watching Mila at the park. The timestamps were from yesterday. Adrian's vision tunneled. The careful control he'd maintained for a year shattered like glass. He grabbed his phone and called Marcus. "Get the plane ready. We're going to Oregon." "What?" "Adrian, we talked about this. Volkov found them. He's going to make a move." Silence. Then, "How do you know?" I know. Get the plane ready and pull together a security team. We leave in 2 hours. Adrian, if we show up with an armed team, we'll scare the hell out of... I don't care. Lena and Mila are not safe, and I'm not losing them because I was too fucking noble to act. His voice cracked. Get it done, Marcus. All right, I'm on it. Adrian ended the call and stared at the photos again. Volkov's men were close. Too close. He'd thought distance would keep Lena safe. He'd been wrong. And now he had to face the woman he'd driven away and convince her to trust him again. The irony wasn't lost on him. But first, he had to get to Oregon before Volkov did. Lena knew something was wrong the moment she stepped outside the diner. The feeling hit her like a punch, that old familiar awareness that she was being watched. She'd felt it before, back in the city, before Adrian pushed her away. She felt it now. Her eyes scanned the street. A black SUV was parked across from the bookstore. 2 men inside, not looking at her but not looking away either. Her pulse kicked up. Stay calm. Maybe they're just passing through. Maybe it's nothing, but her instincts screamed otherwise. Lena forced herself to walk normally to her car. She strapped Mila into the car seat, hands trembling slightly, and pulled out of the parking lot. The SUV followed. Okay, she whispered to herself. Okay, don't panic. But panic was exactly what she felt. She took 3 random turns, testing. The SUV stayed with her, maintaining distance but never losing her. Lena's mind raced. She couldn't go home, not with them following, couldn't lead them straight to where she and Mila slept. She pulled out her phone and called Sarah. Hey, what's up? I need a favor. Lena kept her voice steady. Can Mila and I stay at your place tonight? Of course. Everything okay? I'll explain later. I'm coming over now. She ended the call and took a deliberately convoluted route to Sarah's house, checking her mirrors constantly. The SUV eventually dropped back, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they knew exactly where she was going. Sarah met her at the door, taking one look at Lena's face and immediately pulling her inside. What happened? I think someone's following me. Following you? Elena, are you serious? Lena nodded, settling Mila on the couch. There was a car. They stayed with me for blocks. Did you call the police? No. Lena's voice was sharper than she intended. I can't. Sarah's expression shifted from concern to something more complicated. Who are you running from? The question hung in the air between them. Lena had spent a year building a life based on lies. A fake name, a fake history, a carefully constructed story about being a single mom fleeing an abusive ex. Part of that story was even true. But Sarah deserved more than half-truths. Someone dangerous, Lena said quietly. Someone I thought I'd left behind. The father? No, he's... She trailed off. It's complicated. Is Mila in danger? I don't know, maybe. Lena's voice cracked. I thought we were safe here. I thought we'd disappeared completely. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she crossed to the window and peered through the blinds. There's a car parked down the street. Black SUV. Lena's stomach dropped. That's them. Okay. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. No. Elena, or whatever your real name is, I'm not letting someone stalk you without doing something about it. Her tone was firm. You want to keep your secrets? Fine. But I'm not letting you and that baby get hurt on my watch. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to explain that involving the police would only make things worse, would draw attention she couldn't afford, but before she could speak, glass shattered. The window exploded inward, showering the living room with shards. Sarah screamed. Mila started crying. And Lena's training, instincts she'd developed living with Adrian, kicked in. She grabbed Mila and dove behind the couch as gunfire erupted. The sound was deafening. Bullets tore through Sarah's living room, shredding furniture and punching holes in walls. Lena curled around her daughter, shielding her with her body, while chaos rained down around them. Then, as suddenly as it started, the shooting stopped. Lena's ears rang. Mila was screaming, terrified but unhurt. Sarah was on the floor, hands over her head, hyperventilating. Stay down, Lena hissed. Don't move. She heard car doors opening, footsteps on gravel. This was it. Volkov's men were coming to finish the job. Lena looked around desperately for a weapon, for an escape route, for anything. The front door kicked open. She closed her eyes and held Mila tighter, whispering, "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." "Lena." Her eyes snapped open. Adrian Vallon stood in the doorway, gun drawn, eyes wild. Behind him, Marcus and 3 other armed men swept into the house, securing the perimeter. For a moment, Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He was here. After a year of running, of hiding, of believing she'd never see him again. He was here. "Are you hurt?" Adrian's voice was raw, desperate. He crossed to her in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside the couch. "Lena, are you hurt?" She could only shake her head. His eyes dropped to Mila, still crying in her mother's arms. Something in his expression cracked. Grief and wonder and pain all at once. "Is she—" "She's fine," Lena managed. "We're fine." "The shooters?" Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Gone. They ran when they saw us coming." He looked at Adrian. "But they'll be back. We need to move." Adrian nodded, still staring at Mila. Then he seemed to shake himself, slipping back into the controlled mask Lena remembered. "Can you walk?" he asked her. "Yes." "Then we're leaving. Now." He stood and offered her his hand. Lena stared at it, at him, at the man she'd spent a year running from. "I'm not going with you." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This isn't a debate. You don't get to just show up and—" "Lena." His voice was quiet, lethal. "Dmitry Volkov's men just shot up this house trying to kill you and our daughter. You can be angry at me later. Right now I need you to trust me." "Our daughter." The words hit her like a physical blow. He knew. Of course he knew. Lena looked down at Mila, whose crying had quieted to hiccuping sobs. Then she looked at Sarah, still frozen on the floor, eyes wide with shock. She didn't have a choice. She never really had. "Okay," Lena whispered. "Okay." Adrian's relief was palpable. He helped her to her feet, one hand steady on her elbow. "Marcus, get Sarah somewhere safe. Make sure she's protected." "On it." Adrian guided Lena toward the door, movements efficient and controlled. Outside, the quiet street had erupted into chaos, neighbors peering from windows, someone shouting about calling the police. A black SUV idled at the curb, engine running. Not Volkov's men, Adrian's. He opened the back door. "Get in." Lena climbed inside, still holding Mila. Adrian slid in beside her and the SUV took off before his door even closed. They drove in silence for several minutes. Lena stared out the window, watching sisters disappear behind them, the town where she'd built a life, the place she'd believed was safe. All of it gone in an instant. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "Private airfield, then out of the country until this is handled." "Out of the country?" Lena's voice was flat. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She turned to look at him, really look at him. He'd changed, lost weight, she thought. His face was harder, more drawn. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. He looked like a man being eaten alive from the inside. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About Mila?" Adrian's hands clenched in his lap. "Almost from the beginning. I had someone watching you." "You've been watching me for a year?" "I needed to know you were safe." "So you spied on me instead of just—" She trailed off, anger and grief warring in her chest. "Instead of talking to me. You left for a reason. I wasn't going to drag you back into this. And yet here we are." Adrian's jaw worked. "I didn't have a choice. Volkov found you." "How?" "I don't know, but he's been planning this for weeks, maybe longer." He finally looked at her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her chest tighten. "I'm sorry, Lena. I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner. Sorry I let this happen." Lena wanted to stay angry, wanted to rage at him for pushing her away, for not fighting for them, for all the choices that had led them here. But looking at him now, at the man who'd just charged into gunfire to save them, she couldn't find the words. Instead, she looked down at Mila, who had finally fallen asleep against her shoulder. "She looks like you," Adrian said softly. "She has your eyes. And your stubbornness." Despite everything, Lena felt her lips twitch. "She's 11 months old." "I can tell." They lapsed into silence again. The SUV turned onto a rural highway, heading toward an airfield Lena had never known existed. "What happens now?" she asked. "We disappear. Really disappear this time. Not just new identities, but complete extraction. New country, new lives, everything." "And Volkov?" Adrian's expression went cold. "I'll handle Volkov." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you need." Lena's stomach twisted. She recognized that tone, the one he used when he was planning something violent and final. "Adrian, I won't let him hurt you again." His voice was absolute. "Whatever it takes." The words hung between them, heavy with implications. Lena thought about the life she'd built in Sisters, the friends she'd made, the quiet, normal existence she'd carved out for herself and Mila. All of it was gone now. And sitting next to her was the man responsible for both destroying that life and saving it. "I don't forgive you," she said quietly, "for the divorce, for pushing me away, for making me run." Adrian nodded. "I know. But I understand why you did it." His eyes met hers, surprised. "You were trying to protect me," Lena continued. "It was stupid and it hurt like hell and I hated you for it. But I understand." "Lena Shin, I'm not done." She shifted Mila slightly, settling the sleeping baby more comfortably. "When I found out I was pregnant, I almost told you, almost came back. But then I thought about those men following me, about the life we'd be bringing a child into, and I couldn't do it. So I ran, and maybe that makes me a coward, but it makes you smart." Adrian's voice was rough. "You did what I should have done, put her safety first. We both made choices. And they led us here." The SUV turned onto a dirt road. Through the windshield, Lena could see a small plane waiting on a private runway. Real. This was really happening. "I need you to promise me something," she said. "Anything. When this is over, when Volkov's handled and we're safe, I want a choice." She met his eyes. "About where we go, what we do, whether we—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Whether we try again." Adrian understood anyway. "I promise," he said. "Your life is yours, Lena. It always was." The SUV stopped beside the plane. Marcus appeared at the door, opening it. "We're ready when you are, boss." Adrian nodded, but didn't move. He was looking at Mila, sleeping peacefully in Lena's arms. "Can I—" He swallowed hard. "Can I hold her?" Lena's heart clenched. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, Adrian meeting his daughter. In her imagination, it had always been gentle, sweet, not in the back of an SUV while running for their lives. But life rarely matched imagination. Carefully, she shifted Mila into Adrian's arms. The baby stirred slightly, blinking up at him with sleepy dark eyes. Adrian stared down at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi, Mila." The baby yawned and settled against his chest, one tiny fist curling into his shirt. Lena watched Adrian's face transform, watched grief and wonder and love crash over him like a wave, watched him become a father in the span of a heartbeat. And despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the uncertainty, she felt something in her chest crack open. Maybe they couldn't go back to what they were, but maybe, somehow, they could build something new, if they survived. "We should go," Marcus said gently. Adrian nodded, still holding Mila. He climbed out of the SUV carefully, protecting his daughter's head. Lena followed, and together they walked toward the plane, toward safety, toward an uncertain future, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the sun was setting over Oregon, casting long shadows across the runway and painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Somewhere in the darkness, Dmitry Volkov was planning his next move, but for now, in this moment, Adrian had his family, and he would burn the world to keep them. The safe house was in Costa Rica, hidden in the mountains outside San Jose, a sprawling villa surrounded by jungle and silence. Lena stood on the terrace the morning after their arrival, watching mist roll through the valley below. Mila slept in a crib inside, finally exhausted from the chaos of the past 24 hours. And somewhere in the house, Adrian was on the phone, his voice a low murmur as he coordinated with Marcus back in the States. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the window exploding, heard the gunfire, felt the weight of her daughter in her arms as bullets tore through Sarah's living room. They'd gotten out. Barely. But the fear hadn't left. You should be resting. Lena didn't turn at Adrian's voice. Can't. He came to stand beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Close enough to talk, far enough not to crowd. How's Mila? Still sleeping. She didn't understand what happened, thank God. She will eventually. The words landed heavy. Lena finally looked at him. Is that what you want? For her to grow up knowing her father is a criminal? That people want to kill her because of you? Adrian's jaw tightened. No. Then what's the plan here, Adrian? We run forever? Keep moving every time someone gets close? The plan is to eliminate the threat. You mean kill Volkov? Yes. Lena's stomach churned. She'd known this was coming, known the moment Adrian showed up in Oregon that violence would follow. It always did with him. And then what? She asked. Another enemy takes his place? Someone else decides we're worth targeting? That's not how this works. Isn't it? She turned to face him fully. You told me once that your world doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, that everyone you've ever crossed has a long memory. So tell me, Adrian, when does it end? He didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. When I make it end. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. They stood in tense silence, the jungle sounds filling the space between them, birds calling, insects buzzing, somewhere distant the sound of running water. I never wanted this for you, Adrian said finally. For either of you. But here we are. Here we are. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so familiar it made Lena's chest ache. I've made a lot of mistakes, Lena. Pushed you away when I should have held on. Let fear make my decisions. But the one thing I got right was making sure someone was watching over you, because if I hadn't, we'd be dead. Yes. Lena closed her eyes. I don't know how to feel about that. About you watching us for a year. It feels like a violation and a rescue at the same time. I know. Do you? Do you know what it was like, building a life alone, wondering every day if you'd find us? If you even cared to look? Adrian's voice cracked slightly. I cared. I never stopped caring. Then why didn't you just come? Why all the surveillance and distance? Because I thought you were safer without me. The words burst out of him, raw and desperate. I thought if I stayed away, if I let you have your freedom, you'd be protected. That my enemies wouldn't find you if I kept my distance. That didn't work out so well? No. His laugh was bitter. It didn't. Lena turned back to the valley, watching the mist slowly burn away as the sun rose higher. What did Marcus say? Adrian shifted beside her. Volkov's gone underground. We took out the team that hit Sarah's house, but he has more. Always has more. How many? Enough? That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. Adrian moved closer, just slightly. But I have people too. And I'm not letting him get near you again. You can't promise that. Watch me. The conviction in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified her, because she knew what Adrian was capable of when he made promises like that. Knew the lengths he'd go to, the lines he'd cross. Knew that his protection came with a body count. I don't want you to become a monster because of us, Lena said quietly. I already am one. No, you're not. She looked at him. I've seen monsters, Adrian. You're not that. You're just broken. Something flickered in his eyes. Broken doesn't get our daughter to safety. Maybe not, but it's honest. She paused. When's the last time you were honest with yourself about what you want? What I want doesn't matter. It does to me. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I want my family. I want to watch Mila grow up. I want to wake up next to you and not wonder if today's the day I lose everything. He swallowed hard. But wanting doesn't change reality. What if it could? Lena, what if you walked away? From all of it, the empire, the violence, everything. It doesn't work like that. You don't just walk away from this life. Why not? Because men like Volkov don't let you leave. Because every connection I've ever made, every deal I've brokered, every threat I've eliminated, they all tie back to me. I can't just disappear. You made me disappear. That's different. How? Adrian's hands gripped the railing, knuckles white. Because no one cared about you. Not the way they care about me. You weren't a threat, weren't competition, weren't anything but collateral. That's why I could hide you. But me? He shook his head. I'm the threat. I'm the competition. And the moment I show weakness, the moment I try to walk away, I become prey. Lena's throat tightened. So we're trapped. You're not. Once this is handled, once Volkov's dealt with, you can go wherever you want. Take Mila. Build a new life. Forget I ever... Stop. She grabbed his arm. Just stop. I'm not asking for your permission to leave, Adrian. I'm asking if you want to stay. He looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. With us, she clarified. Do you want to be part of Mila's life? Part of mine? You know I do. Then say it, out loud. Stop hiding behind what you think is best for us, and tell me what you actually want. Adrian's throat worked. His eyes were wet, though he didn't let the tears fall. I want to be her father. Want to teach her to ride a bike and help with homework and scare off boys when she's older. I want... His voice broke. I want what I can't have. Why can't you have it? Because I'm not that man, Lena. I'm not the father who goes to PTA meetings and coaches soccer. I'm the man who has enemies and blood on his hands and a price on his head. You're also the man who charged into gunfire to save us. That's different. No, it's not. That's exactly the man I want Mila to know. The one who fights for his family, who protects what matters. She moved closer. You think you're too broken for this, but you're wrong. Broken just means there's room to rebuild. Adrian stared at her, something desperate and hopeful warring in his expression. I don't know how. Neither do I, but we figure it out together. Lena! A cry from inside interrupted them. Mila, awake and probably hungry. Lena started to turn, but Adrian caught her hand. Let me, he said. Please. She hesitated, then nodded. Adrian disappeared inside. Through the open door, Lena watched him approach the crib, watched the way his entire demeanor softened as he lifted his daughter. Hey, sweetheart, he murmured. Did you sleep okay? Mila whimpered, rubbing her eyes. I know. New place. Everything's scary. Adrian settled her against his shoulder, one hand supporting her head. But you're safe here. I promise. The baby quieted at his voice, pressing her face into his neck. Lena's chest tightened watching them. This was what she'd imagined a year ago. Adrian with their daughter, gentle and present. She'd given up on that image when she'd run. Now it was real. And it terrified her almost as much as it filled her with hope. She went inside, moving to the small kitchen area. She's probably hungry. I'll make her a bottle. I can do it. Adrian, you don't... I want to learn. He looked at her, Mila still in his arms. Please, teach me. So she did. Showed him how much formula, the right water temperature, how to test it on his wrist. Adrian followed every instruction with intense focus, like he was diffusing a bomb rather than making baby formula. You're overthinking it, Lena said, fighting a smile. I don't want to mess up. It's a bottle. You can't mess it up too badly. Still, when it was ready, Adrian settled into a chair and offered it to Mila. She latched on immediately, her dark eyes fixed on his face. He stared down at her with such raw wonder that Lena had to look away. She's perfect, he whispered. She has colic, and she screams for an hour every night around 8. Still perfect. Despite everything, Lena felt warmth spread through her chest. She'd spent a year being both mother and father, carrying the weight alone. Watching Adrian now, watching him fall completely in love with his daughter, made that weight feel lighter, dangerous. That's what this was. Dangerous to let herself believe they could be a family, that Adrian could be present and safe and theirs. But she wanted it anyway. Marcus called an hour later, and the fragile peace shattered. We have a problem, he said without preamble when Adrian answered. Adrian's expression shifted immediately, all softness vanishing. What kind of problem? Volkov's putting out feelers, wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? A truce. Says if you give him what he wants, he'll leave your family alone. Adrian's grip on the phone tightened. What does he want? Your territory. All of it. You walk away, he gets the empire. Silence. Then, He wants me to give up everything I've built in exchange for Lena and Mila's safety. Yeah. Lena watched Adrian's face, saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. She knew that look, had seen it before when he was weighing options, considering angles. It's a trap, Adrian said. Probably. But what if it's not? It's still a trap. Volkov doesn't negotiate, he conquers. So what do you want me to tell him? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Lena could practically see the wheels turning, all the possibilities, the outcomes, the risks. Tell him I'll think about it. Adrian, just buy me some time, Marcus. I need to think. He ended the call and sat in silence, still holding the now empty bottle. What are you thinking? Lena asked carefully. That Volkov's smarter than I gave him credit for. Because he found your weakness? Because he knows I'll actually consider giving him what he wants if it means keeping you safe. Lena's stomach dropped. You can't seriously be thinking about this. Why not? Because it's everything you've worked for, your entire life. My entire life means nothing if you're dead. The words hit like a physical blow. Adrian, I'm serious, Lena. What's an empire worth if I lose my family? What's power if I can't protect the people I love? He set down the bottle and stood, pacing. I built all of this to have control, to never be at someone else's mercy. But I was wrong, because here I am, completely powerless, and the only thing that matters is in this room. Lena's throat was tight. Don't do this. Don't do what? Choose you? Choose Mila? Don't make us the reason you destroy everything you've built. You're not the reason. Volkov is. Adrian stopped pacing, looking at her. But you are the reason I'm willing to walk away. And what happens when you do? When you give him everything and he comes after us anyway? He won't. You don't know that. I do, actually, because if he breaks his word, I'll kill him, and he knows it. The only reason he's offering this deal is because he respects the threat I pose. He wants me gone, not dead. There's a difference. Lena shook her head. This is insane. This is survival. No, survival is fighting back, not surrendering. I'm not surrendering. I'm making a strategic choice. It's the same thing. Mila started crying at the raised voices. Lena immediately moved to her, lifting the baby from Adrian's arms and soothing her with practiced ease. We're scaring her, she said quietly. Adrian's shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. They stood in tense silence while Lena calmed Mila. The baby eventually quieted, hiccuping softly against her mother's shoulder. I need air, Lena said. Lena, just give me a minute, please. She walked outside, still holding Mila, and tried to organize her thoughts. The jungle pressed in around the villa, green and alive and utterly foreign. This wasn't her life, running and hiding and watching the man she'd once loved negotiate with monsters. But it was her life now. Adrian found her 10 minutes later, leaning against a tree while Mila dozed against her shoulder. I'm not giving you up, he said without preamble. I need you to understand that. Whatever I decide to do about Volkov, it's not about surrendering. It's about making sure you and Mila survive. At what cost? Any cost. Even your soul? Adrian was quiet. I lost that a long time ago. That's not true. Isn't it? You know what I've done, Lena, who I am. The blood on my hands doesn't wash off. Maybe not, but that doesn't mean you can't still be good, still choose better. I'm trying. That's what this is. Choosing better, choosing you. Lena looked at him, really looked at him, saw the exhaustion, the fear, the desperate love he was trying so hard to hide. I don't want you to give up your empire, she said slowly, but I also don't want Mila growing up in a war zone. Then what do you want? I want a third option, one where we don't run and you don't surrender. There isn't one. Then we make one. Adrian's expression shifted. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop playing Volkov's game, stop reacting to his moves. You're smarter than this, Adrian, so outsmart him. He has resources. So do you, and you have something he doesn't. What's that? Something to lose, something that makes you unpredictable. She shifted Mila slightly. Volkov thinks he knows you, thinks you'll choose between your empire and your family. Prove him wrong. Keep both. Adrian stared at her. You're saying I should fight. I'm saying you should win. Really win. Not just survive, not just make deals. End this. Permanently. That means blood. I know. A lot of it. I know that too. Adrian moved closer, his voice dropping. Are you sure? Because once I start down that path, there's no going back. I'll have to do things, terrible things, to make sure Volkov can never threaten you again. Lena's hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. Do what you have to do. Just come back to us when it's done. For a moment, Adrian looked like he might argue, might try to convince her she didn't understand what she was asking. But she did understand, completely. This was the man she'd married, capable of violence and ruthlessness when necessary. She'd spent a year trying to run from that truth, trying to build a life where she didn't have to face what loving Adrian Vallon meant. Now she was choosing it anyway, not because she liked it, not because it was right, but because it was real. Okay, Adrian said finally. Okay. He pulled out his phone and called Marcus back. Change of plans, he said when the man answered. Tell Volkov the deal's off, and start gathering everyone we trust. I want a full team assembled within 48 hours. You sure about this? Adrian looked at Lena, at Mila sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. I'm sure. We're done running. Time to end this. About damn time. What's the play? I'll explain when I get back. Just get everyone ready. You're coming back? What about Lena and the baby? They stay here, with full security. Adrian, Lena started. He held up a hand. Non-negotiable. You stay safe while I handle this. I didn't just give you permission to go get yourself killed. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because I have too much to live for now. He ended the call and turned to face her fully. I need you to trust me. I do trust you. I don't trust Volkov. Neither do I. Which is why I'm not playing by his rules anymore. Lena wanted to argue. Wanted to demand he find another way. A safer way. Any way that didn't involve him walking into a war zone. But she'd asked for this. Asked him to fight instead of surrender. Now she had to live with the consequences. How long? She asked. A week? Maybe less? And if it takes longer? It won't. Adrian, I promise, Lena. 1 week, and this is over. Volkov will be gone, and we can figure out what comes next. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to think it could be that simple. But nothing with Adrian was ever simple. Still, she nodded. 1 week? 1 week. He moved closer, hesitated, then gently touched Mila's head. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Take care of her, he said quietly. I always do. I know. His hand moved from Mila to Lena's cheek, thumb brushing her skin. And when I come back, we're going to talk, really talk, about what this means, what we want, all of it. Okay. I mean it. No more running, no more hiding. We figure this out together. Together, Lena repeated. Adrian leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips brushed hers, soft, careful, questioning. It wasn't the desperate kiss of reunion or the passionate embrace of lovers reuniting. It was something quieter, more fragile. A promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. I love you. I never stopped. Lena's breath caught. Adrian, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. He stepped away before she could respond, already shifting back into the controlled, dangerous version of himself that ran an empire. I'll leave 2 men here, he said, all business now. They'll rotate shifts, stay out of your way, but keep the perimeter secure. If anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. I will. I'm serious, Lena. Don't try to be brave. Don't try to handle it yourself. You call me. I will, she repeated. Adrian nodded, then headed inside to pack. Lena stayed in the jungle clearing holding Mila and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. An hour later, Adrian was ready to leave. He stood in the doorway, looking back at them one last time. 1 week, he said. 1 week, Lena echoed. Then he was gone. And Lena was alone again with their daughter, waiting in a foreign country while the man she loved went to war. She stood on the terrace long after the sound of his car faded, watching the jungle and thinking about choices. About the moment she'd decided to run versus the moment she'd decided to stay. About the version of herself that had signed divorce papers and the version that had just sent Adrian into battle. Which one was real? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe she was still figuring it out. Mila woke, fussing softly. Lena carried her inside and settled into the routine of feeding and changing and soothing. Normal things. Human things. Things that felt impossibly fragile in a world where men like Volkov existed. But she did them anyway. Because that's what mothers did. They carried on. They protected. They hoped. Even when hope felt like the most dangerous thing of all. Outside, the jungle pressed close, full of sounds and shadows. The guards Adrian had left took up their positions, silent and watchful. And Lena sat in a borrowed villa in a foreign country, holding her daughter, and prayed that in 1 week, Adrian would keep his promise, that he'd come back to them, that this nightmare would finally end, that somehow, impossibly, they'd get their chance at something better. But prayer felt hollow. So instead, she sang to Mila, soft lullabies her mother had taught her, passed down through generations. And she waited. That's all she could do now. Wait and hope and hold on. Just 1 more week. Then they'd know if love could survive the darkness, or if the darkness would swallow them whole. 5 days passed in suffocating silence. Lena counted hours like currency, each one bringing them closer to Adrian's promised week, and further from certainty. He called once a day, brief, clipped conversations that told her nothing except that he was alive. "How are you?" she'd ask. "Fine. You?" "We're okay. Mila's eating better." "Good. That's good." Then silence, heavy with all the things they weren't saying. "Adrian, I have to go. I'll call tomorrow." And he would. Same time, same empty reassurances, same hollowness in his voice that made her stomach twist. Something was wrong. She could feel it. On the 6th day, he didn't call. Lena checked her phone every 10 minutes, pacing the villa with Mila on her hip. The guards outside maintained their positions, faces blank, revealing nothing. At noon, she called Adrian, straight to voicemail, called Marcus, same thing. By evening, panic had settled into her bones like ice. "Something's wrong," she told Carlos, one of the guards Adrian had left. "He always calls." Carlos's expression remained neutral. "Maybe he's busy." "No, something happened." "Ma'am, I'm sure Don't." Lena's voice sharpened. "Don't tell me everything's fine when you don't know that. Can you reach Marcus?" "I can try." He stepped away, speaking quietly into his phone. Lena watched his face, searching for any sign, any indication of what was happening 3,000 miles away. Carlos returned, his expression carefully controlled. "Marcus isn't answering either. Call someone else. Anyone on Adrian's team." "Ma'am, do it." He made 3 more calls. All went unanswered. Lena's hand shook as she settled Mila into her playpen. The baby, sensing her mother's distress, started to fuss. "It's okay, sweetheart," Lena whispered, though her voice cracked. "Everything's okay." But it wasn't. At 8 that night, Carlos's phone finally rang. He answered immediately, stepping outside. Through the window, Lena watched his posture stiffen. When he came back in, his face was gray. "What happened?" Lena demanded. "There was an incident." "What kind of incident?" Carlos hesitated. "Volkov set a trap. Adrian walked into it." The world tilted. "Is he alive?" "We don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" "Volkov took him. Marcus and the team tried to intercept, but..." He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "There was an explosion. Marcus is in the hospital. 3 men are dead, and Adrian's missing." Lena's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of the couch to stay upright. "How long has he been missing?" "Since this morning." "This morning? And you're just telling me now?" "We didn't want to alarm you until we had more information." "I don't care about information. I care about..." Her voice broke. She pressed a hand to her mouth, forcing herself to breathe. "Where is he?" "We think Volkov's holding him at a compound outside the city. We're working on confirmation." "You think? You're working on it?" Lena's fear crystallized into fury. Adrian is being held by a man who wants him dead, and you're still gathering intelligence? Ma'am, rushing in without a plan. I don't give a damn about plans. Get him back. Carlos's expression was pained. We're trying, but Volkov's compound is fortified. Going in blind would be suicide. Then don't go in blind. Figure it out. That's what you people do, isn't it? She was shaking now, adrenaline and terror warring in her chest. He went back there because of us, because I told him to fight. If he dies, he's not going to die. You can't promise that. No, Carlos admitted quietly. I can't. Lena turned away, staring at Mila playing with her toys, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding. Her daughter, Adrian's daughter. What had she done? She'd sent him into this, told him to stop surrendering, to fight back. And now he was in Volkov's hands, probably being tortured, possibly already dead. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Lena grabbed it. Hello? Lena Carter. The voice was unfamiliar, heavily accented. Or should I say, Elena Martinez? You have many names, it seems. Her blood turned to ice. Who is this? I think you know. Volkov. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted, but now I have leverage. He paused. Your husband is here with me. Would you like to speak with him? If you've heard him, listen. There was a rustling sound, then Adrian's voice, hoarse and strained. Lena, don't! A sharp crack. Adrian's grunt of pain. Stop! Lena's scream echoed through the villa. Stop hurting him! Then cooperate. Volkov's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I'm going to give you an address. You will come alone. No guards, no weapons, no tricks. If you bring anyone or alert the authorities, Adrian dies. Do you understand? Yes. Good. You have 12 hours. He rattled off an address. Lena's hands shook as she grabbed a pen and scribbled it down. I'll come, she said. Just don't hurt him again. Please. That depends entirely on you. Volkov paused. Oh, and Lena? Bring the child. I want to meet my leverage in person. The line went dead. Lena stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her mind screaming. Bring Mila. He wanted her to bring their daughter into a death trap. What did he say? Carlos was beside her, his earlier composure cracking. Lena's voice came out hollow. He wants me to come alone. With Mila. Absolutely not. He'll kill Adrian if I don't. He'll kill all of you if you do. This is a trap, ma'am. Volkov wants you vulnerable. I know what it is. Lena looked at him. But Adrian's alive. And as long as he's alive, there's a chance. A chance for what? You walk in there, you're giving Volkov everything he wants. You, the baby, and Adrian all in one place. Then what do you suggest, that I leave him there? Carlos's jaw worked. We wait for the team to regroup, plan an extraction. In 12 hours? You just said the compound is fortified. It is, but there's no time, Lena's voice cracked. Don't you understand? Every minute we wait is another minute Adrian's being tortured. I can't, she broke off, pressing her hands to her face. I can't just leave him there. You have your daughter to think about. I am thinking about her. I'm thinking about the fact that her father is being held by a monster, and if I don't do something, she'll never know him, never have the chance. Lena's throat closed. I have to go. This is insane. Probably, but it's happening anyway. She moved past him, heading to the bedroom where Mila's things were kept. Started packing a bag with practiced efficiency. Diapers, formula, a change of clothes. Carlos followed. If you do this, you're walking into a slaughter. Maybe. There's no maybe about it. Volkov's not going to let any of you leave alive. Then I guess we'll die together. Lena's hand stilled on a tiny pink onesie. But at least Mila will have met her father first. This is... Carlos stopped, seeming to struggle with something. Marcus is going to kill me for this. For what? For letting you go. For not stopping you. You couldn't stop me if you tried. I know. He pulled out his phone. But I can make sure you're not completely defenseless. He made a call, speaking rapid Spanish. Lena couldn't follow all of it, but she caught enough. Coordinates, backup, contingencies. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I'm sending my partner with you. He'll stay out of sight, but he'll be close. If things go wrong, they will go wrong. When they do, you follow his lead. Understand? Lena nodded, though she had no intention of following anyone's lead except her own instincts. She finished packing, then lifted Mila from the playpen. The baby looked up at her with Adrian's dark eyes, trusting and innocent. I'm so sorry, baby, Lena whispered. I'm so sorry. Mila grabbed her mother's hair, babbling happily. Lena kissed her daughter's forehead and tried not to think about what she was walking into. The drive took 6 hours. Carlos's partner, a quiet man named Rafael, drove while Lena sat in back with Mila. The baby slept most of the way, exhausted from being woken in the middle of the night. Lena didn't sleep, couldn't. She stared out the window at the passing darkness and thought about choices. About the moment she told Adrian to fight instead of surrender. About every decision that had led them here. We're getting close, Rafael said as dawn broke. The compound is another 10 kilometers. Where will you be? Close enough. His eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. If shooting starts, you get down and stay down. I'll handle the rest. What if there's no shooting? What if Volkov just... There will be shooting, Rafael said flatly. Men like Volkov don't negotiate. They eliminate. Comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to keep you breathing. Fair enough. They drove in silence until Rafael pulled off onto a dirt road. Half a kilometer later, he stopped. This is as far as I go. The compound is through those trees. You'll see it. Lena looked at the forest ahead, dark and dense. And you'll be where? Around. He handed her a small device. Looks like a phone charger. It's actually a tracker. Keep it in your pocket. If I lose visual, I can still find you. She took it, slipping it into her jeans. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive long enough for me to do my job. Lena climbed out, carefully lifting Mila from her car seat. The baby woke, blinking in the early light. Mama, she babbled. That's right, sweetheart. Mama's here. Lena started walking. The forest was quiet except for birds and the crunch of her footsteps. She followed what looked like an old trail, heart hammering against her ribs. After 10 minutes, she saw it. The compound. It wasn't what she'd expected. No massive fortress or armed guards visible from the outside. Just a large house, almost a mansion, surrounded by a high fence. Cameras on every corner. 2 men at the gate. She approached slowly, hands visible, Mila held against her chest. The guards watched her come. Neither spoke until she was 10 feet away. Lena Carter? One asked. Yes. You alone? Yes. He spoke into a radio. A moment later, the gate buzzed open. Inside. Someone will meet you. Lena walked through, every instinct screaming at her to run. But she kept moving, kept her face blank, kept Mila close. The front door opened before she reached it. Dmitry Volkov stood in the doorway. He was smaller than she'd imagined. Average height, graying hair, expensive suit. He looked like a businessman, not a monster. But his eyes were cold. Lena, he said, smiling. And this must be little Mila. Come in, please. She followed him inside, taking in details. 2 more guards in the foyer. Expensive art on the walls, classical music playing softly from somewhere. You have a lovely home, Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. Thank you. I like to think I've done well for myself. Volkov gestured to a sitting room. Please, make yourself comfortable. Lena didn't sit. Where's Adrian? Straight to business. I like that. Volkov's smile didn't reach his eyes. He's here, alive, though not particularly comfortable at the moment. I want to see him. In time. First we talk. There's nothing to talk about. I came like you asked. Let him go. Volkov laughed, a genuine sound that made her skin crawl. You think this is a simple exchange? You for him? Isn't it? No, my dear. This is about power, control. Adrian Vallon took something from me years ago. Now I'm taking everything from him. Lena's grip on Mila tightened. I don't care about your feud. I just want my family safe. Family. Volkov said the word like it tasted bitter. That's his weakness, you know. All these years, Adrian built an empire on fear and violence, untouchable. Then he fell in love with you, and suddenly he had something to lose. Love isn't weakness. No? Then why are you standing in my house bargaining for his life? Volkov moved closer. You made him weak, Lena. And weakness in our world is fatal. If you're going to kill us, just do it. Stop playing games. But games are so much more interesting. He reached out, touching Mila's cheek. The baby pulled back, whimpering. Lena stepped away. Don't touch her. Protective. I respect that. Volkov's hand dropped. Adrian was the same way when I brought him here. Tried to bargain, tried to negotiate. Even offered me his empire if I'd leave you alone. Her breath caught. What? Oh yes. Quite touching, really. The great Adrian Vallon, willing to give up everything for you and this child. Volkov's expression hardened. I refused, of course, because what I want isn't his empire, it's his suffering. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. He gestured to one of the guards. Bring him up. The guard left. Lena's heart hammered as she waited, counting seconds, praying. Then she heard footsteps, heavy, dragging. Adrian appeared in the doorway, supported by two guards. Lena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. He was barely recognizable, face swollen and bruised, one eye completely shut, blood crusted on his shirt. He moved like every step was agony. But when he saw her, something shifted in his expression. Horror, rage, despair. Lena, he rasped. Why did you come? I had to. No, you didn't. You should have. He coughed, wincing. Should have stayed safe. Safe? She nearly laughed. There's no safe, Adrian, not anymore. Volkov watched their exchange with apparent interest. Touching reunion, but we're wasting time. He pulled a gun from his jacket, casual as anything. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to make a choice, Lena. What choice? Who lives? He pointed the gun at Adrian, then at her, then at Mila. I'm feeling generous today. One of you walks out of here, the other two... He shrugged. Well? Lena's blood turned to ice. You can't be serious. Completely serious. Choose. You have 60 seconds. Don't, Adrian said immediately. Don't give him what he wants. Shut up. Volkov's voice was sharp. 50 seconds. Lena's mind raced. This was it. The nightmare she'd been running from for 2 years, manifesting in its worst possible form. Choose who lives. Choose who dies. Me, Adrian said, his voice stronger now despite his injuries. Kill me. Let them go. No, Lena started. Yes. That's the deal, Volkov. You want me to suffer? Killing me is easy. Knowing I died and couldn't protect them, that's suffering. Adrian's eyes met Lena's. Take them. Let them live, please. 30 seconds, Volkov said. Adrian, stop. I love you. His voice cracked. Both of you. More than anything. And if my death means you get to live, then that's... He swallowed hard. That's enough. Lena was crying now, couldn't stop. I'm not choosing this. You don't have to. I'm choosing for you. 20 seconds. There has to be another way, Lena said desperately. Please, there has to be... There isn't. Adrian looked at Volkov. Do it. Let them go and I won't fight. I'll kneel right here and you can put a bullet in my head. Just let my family walk out. Volkov considered this. Tempting, but I think I prefer my original offer. He raised the gun, pointing it at Lena. 10 seconds. Choose, or I choose for you. Adrian lunged. Despite his injuries, despite the guards holding him, he threw himself forward with desperate strength, crashed into Volkov, sending them both sprawling. The gun went off. Lena screamed, dropping to cover Mila with her body. More gunshots, shouting, chaos. She looked up to see Adrian and Volkov struggling on the floor, the gun between them. The guards moved to intervene, but suddenly the windows exploded inward. Raphael. He came through the glass like an avenging angel, weapon raised, taking out one guard before the man could react. The second guard turned, firing, missing. Raphael didn't. More men poured through the front door, Carlos and what looked like an entire tactical team. The foyer erupted into a firefight. Stay down, someone shouted. Lena curled around Mila, shielding her daughter as bullets tore through the air. The baby was screaming, terrified, and Lena couldn't do anything except hold her and pray. On the floor, Adrian and Volkov still fought. Blood slicked the marble beneath them. The gun fired again, the sound deafening. Adrian went still. No! Lena's scream cut through the chaos, but then Volkov fell back, clutching his chest. Blood bloomed across his expensive suit. Adrian had the gun. He stood shakily, raising it with trembling hands, and put 2 more bullets in Volkov's head. The man who'd terrorized them for years died without ceremony, slumping against his own expensive furniture. Adrian dropped the gun, swayed, collapsed. Adrian! Lena scrambled toward him, Mila still in her arms. Adrian, stay with me! His eyes found hers. Blood soaked his shirt. She couldn't tell how much was his and how much was Volkov's. You okay? He whispered. I'm fine. We're fine. But you... Marcus, Adrian called weakly. Marcus appeared, limping badly but alive. I'm here, boss. Get them out, now. We're all getting out. Marcus gestured to his men. Secure the perimeter. Get medical in here. Someone wrapped a blanket around Lena's shoulders. Someone else tried to take Mila, but she held on tighter. She's in shock, a voice said. Give her a minute. Adrian reached up, his hand finding hers. Their fingers interlaced, blood slicked and shaking. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. You saved us. I almost got you killed. But you didn't. Lena squeezed his hand. You didn't. Paramedics arrived, loading Adrian onto a stretcher. Lena followed, refusing to let go of his hand even as they worked on him. Ma'am, we need space. I'm not leaving him. They gave up arguing. Outside, dawn had fully broken. The compound, Volkov's fortress, was swarming with Adrian's men. In the distance, sirens wailed. Lena climbed into the ambulance with Adrian, still holding Mila, still holding his hand. Stay awake, she told him. Please stay awake. Tired, he mumbled. I know. But you have to stay with us. You promised. 1 week, remember? Missed the deadline. So you owe me extra time. Her voice broke. Stay, Adrian, please. His eyes focused on her with effort. Love you. I love you too, so stay. The ambulance doors closed. The vehicle lurched into motion, and Lena held on, to her daughter, to Adrian's hand, to hope. They'd survived, barely. But they'd survived. Now they just had to keep living. Adrian spent 3 days in surgery. Lena spent 3 days in the hospital waiting room, refusing to leave except to feed and change Mila. Marcus brought her coffee she didn't drink and food she couldn't eat. Carlos checked in twice, looking guilty. Raphael appeared once, nodded, and disappeared again. The doctors used words like critical and touch and go, and significant internal bleeding. Lena stopped listening after the first hour. All that mattered was whether Adrian would wake up. On the 3rd day, he did. Lena was dozing in the chair beside his bed, Mila asleep in her arms, when she heard his voice. Lena. Her eyes snapped open. Adrian was looking at her, his face pale and drawn but alive, so impossibly alive. Hey, she whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly would shatter the moment. Hey! His voice was rough, damaged. You look terrible. She laughed, the sound breaking into a sob. You're one to talk. Fair point. He tried to sit up, winced, gave up. Mila okay? She's perfect. Doesn't remember any of it, thank God. Good, that's... He coughed, his face contorting with pain. That's good. Lena stood carefully, settling Mila into the hospital bassinet they'd brought in. Then she moved to Adrian's side, taking his hand. You scared me, she said. I scared myself. His fingers tightened around hers. When I saw you walk into that compound, I thought... He broke off. I thought Volkov would kill you right there. He tried to make me choose which one of us would live. Adrian's expression darkened. He what? You don't remember? Everything after the first day is fuzzy. They kept me drugged. He touched his ribs gingerly. Pretty sure they broke most of these. 3 ribs, plus internal bleeding, a punctured lung, and a concussion. Lena's voice was matter-of-fact, but her hand trembled. The doctor said you were lucky. Doesn't feel lucky. You're alive, that's lucky enough. They sat in silence for a moment, just breathing together. What happened after? Adrian asked finally. After Volkov? Marcus cleaned up, took care of the bodies, the witnesses, everything. Officially, Volkov died in a turf war with a rival organization. Your name never came up. Of course it didn't. Marcus is thorough. He also broke 2 ribs and cracked his skull getting to you, so maybe thank him when you're feeling generous. Adrian managed a weak smile. I'll send him a fruit basket. He'd prefer whiskey. That too. Mila stirred in her sleep, making soft baby noises. Both of them turned to look at her. She really doesn't remember? Adrian asked quietly. She's 11 months old. All she knows is that Mama was scared, and now Mama's not. Still, I brought that into her life, the fear, the violence. We both did, Lena interrupted. I'm the one who told you to fight instead of walk away, remember? You were right. Was I? Because it nearly got all of us killed. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Would you have preferred I surrendered, given Volkov everything? I don't know, Lena admitted. All I know is that I spent 3 days thinking you might die, and Her voice cracked. I couldn't breathe, Adrian. Every time I thought about losing you, I couldn't breathe. He pulled her hand to his chest, pressing it against his heart. She could feel it beating, strong and steady despite everything. I'm here, he said. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. No, but I can try. Lena rested her forehead against their joined hands and let herself cry. Not the desperate, terrified tears from the compound, just exhaustion and relief and the weight of everything they'd survived. Adrian's other hand came up, threading through her hair. I love you. I know. Do you? Because I need you to really understand what that means. He waited until she looked up at him. It means I choose you, every time, over the empire, over the power, over everything. You and Mila, that's what matters. That's all that matters. Adrian, I'm not done. When I was in Volkov's basement, when I thought I'd never see you again, I made myself a promise. If I survived, I'd do better. Be better. Not just for you, but for her. He glanced at Mila. She deserves a father who isn't a monster. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. And you're trying to be better. That counts for something. Adrian's expression was pained. Does it? Because from where I'm lying, all I see is the damage I've caused. Sarah's house destroyed. You and Mila nearly killed. Marcus in a hospital bed down the hall. All of you alive, Lena countered. That counts too. Barely. Barely is still alive. He studied her face, searching for something. You really mean that? I do. Lena squeezed his hand. Look, I'm not going to pretend this is easy, or that I'm not terrified of what comes next. But I also know that the man who threw himself at Volkov to protect us isn't a monster. He's just human, flawed and violent and capable of terrible things, but also capable of love, of sacrifice. Lena, let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I spent a year running from you, from what you represented, from the life you lived. And I was right to run. Staying would have been dangerous and stupid. But I was also wrong, because I was running from love. From the one person who saw me as more than invisible. Adrian's eyes were wet. You were never invisible to me. I know, that's why this is so hard. She wiped her face. I don't forgive you for the divorce, for pushing me away without giving me a choice, but I understand it, and I'm choosing to move forward anyway. What does that mean, moving forward? I don't know yet. We figure it out as we go. Together? If you want that. More than anything. Mila chose that moment to wake up, her cries shattering the quiet intimacy. Lena moved to pick her up, soothing her with practiced ease. Someone's hungry, she murmured. There's formula in my bag. Carlos brought supplies. Adrian watched as Lena prepared a bottle and settled into the chair to feed their daughter. Mila latched on immediately, her dark eyes fixed on her mother's face. She looks like you when she concentrates, Adrian observed. She looks like you when she's stubborn. So all the time? Lena smiled despite herself. Pretty much. They fell into comfortable silence, just watching Mila eat. It felt normal, domestic, like they were any other family spending time together in a hospital room. The illusion shattered when Marcus appeared in the doorway, bandages wrapped around his head, moving stiffly. You should be resting, Adrian said. So should you. Yet here we are. Marcus lowered himself carefully into a chair. We need to talk. About? What happens next? Adrian's expression shuddered. There's nothing to talk about. Volkov's dead. We won. Did we? Because from where I'm sitting, we're exposed. Half the underworld knows you went after Volkov personally. They're watching to see what you'll do next. Let them watch. Adrian, I'm done, Marcus. The words came out flat, final. Done with the wars and the territory and the whole damn thing. You want the empire? It's yours. Marcus stared at him. You're serious. Completely. I'm out. You can't just walk away. Why not? I built it. I can dismantle it. That's not how this works, and you know it. Marcus leaned forward, wincing. You step down, someone else steps up. Someone worse, probably. And all the stability you've created, all the rules and boundaries, gone. Not my problem. Yes, it is. Because those boundaries protected people, civilians. The guys who run protection for small businesses aren't going to be as nice about it if some psychopath takes over. Adrian's jaw tightened. What do you want from me? A transition plan. Something that doesn't leave a power vacuum. Marcus glanced at Lena, then back at Adrian. I get it. You want out. You want a normal life with your family, but you can't just disappear without consequences. Then what do you suggest? Hand it over slowly, piece by piece. Give people time to adjust. Make deals, set up successor structures. Do it right, and in a year, maybe 2, you're clean. A year? Lena's voice was sharp. We're supposed to wait another year while Adrian stays in the game? Not in it. Transitioning out of it. There's a difference. Not much of one. Marcus met her eyes. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but it's the reality. Adrian can't just flip a switch and become a civilian. Too many people depend on his organization. Too many livelihoods are tied up in it. Livelihoods built on crime, Lena shot back. Yeah, but also jobs, security, order in places where there wouldn't be any otherwise. Marcus's voice was steady. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's complicated. Lena looked at Adrian. Is he right? Adrian's expression was pained. Yeah, he's right. So what? We just accept that you're stuck in this life forever? No, we accept that getting out takes time. Adrian shifted into the bed, grimacing. But Marcus, I need guarantees, real ones. Nothing that puts Lena or Mila at risk. Done. They stay protected. Full security detail, safe locations, everything. And I want a timeline. Concrete steps, not vague promises. I'll have something drawn up by the end of the week. Adrian nodded slowly, then looked at Lena. Is that okay? Can you live with that? She wanted to say no, wanted to demand he choose right now, her or the empire, family or power. But looking at him now, bandaged and broken and trying so hard to do the right thing, she couldn't. Okay, she said quietly, but the moment anything feels wrong, the moment I think Mila's in danger, we're gone. No discussion. Agreed. Marcus stood carefully. I'll let you two talk. But Adrian, we need to move fast on this. Volkov's death left holes, and nature abhors a vacuum. I know. Just give me a few days to heal. You've got 72 hours. Then we start the transition whether you're ready or not. He left, closing the door behind him. Lena and Adrian sat in heavy silence. Mila had finished her bottle and was drowsing against her mother's shoulder, content. I'm sorry, Adrian said finally. For what? For this not being simple. For not being able to just walk away and give you the life you deserve. Adrian, let me say this, please. He took a breath. You deserve someone uncomplicated, someone safe, someone who doesn't have enemies and blood on his hands and a criminal empire to dismantle. You deserve better than me. Stop. It's true. I said stop. Lena's voice was firm. You don't get to decide what I deserve. I do. And what I deserve is someone who loves me and Mila enough to change. Someone who's trying, even when it's hard, even when it's complicated. She shifted Mila to her other shoulder. Is that you? I want it to be. Then that's enough. For now. Adrian's expression cracked. I don't know how to do this. How to be a father, a partner, someone worthy of you. Nobody knows how at first. You just try and fail and try again. What if I keep failing? Then I'll be here to catch you, same as you caught me when I ran. They looked at each other across the hospital room, two broken people trying to build something whole. Okay, Adrian said softly. Okay. 6 weeks later, Lena stood in the kitchen of a house she'd never imagined owning. It was in the suburbs, a nice neighborhood with good schools and tree-lined streets. The kind of place where people walked their dogs and kids rode bikes, and nobody had armed guards watching the perimeter. Well, mostly nobody. Adrian had insisted on discreet security. Two guys who looked like normal neighbors but carried concealed weapons and did regular sweeps. Lena had argued, but given in. Some compromises were worth making. "Mama, up!" Mila Tuttle ran into the kitchen, arms raised. "What's wrong, baby?" "Up!" Lena lifted her daughter, settling her on her hip. At 14 months, Mila was getting heavy, and opinionated, and absolutely fearless. "Dada?" Mila asked, looking around. "Daddy's at work. He'll be home for dinner." "Dada!" Mila insisted. "I know, sweetheart. I miss him too." It had been like this for weeks. Adrian gone most days, working with Marcus on the transition. Lena knew it was necessary, knew he was doing exactly what he'd promised, but she still hated it. The front door opened. "I'm home!" Mila shrieked with delight. "Dada!" Adrian appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking exhausted but smiling. Mila launched herself at him, and he caught her with practiced ease. "There's my girl," he said, kissing her head. "Were you good for Mama?" "She threw spaghetti at the wall during lunch," Lena reported. "Artistic expression. I like it." "You won't like cleaning it up." "Fair point." He settled Mila on his shoulders, making her giggle. "How was your day?" "Quiet." "Yours?" "Complicated, but productive." He lowered Mila carefully, then moved to kiss Lena. "We finalized the transfer of the East Side operations." "That's good? That's huge. 3 more like that. And I'm almost clear." Almost. The word hung between them. Adrian must have seen something in her expression because he pulled her close. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "Lena," she sighed, "it's just, I know this takes time. I know you're doing everything right, but some days it feels like we're still waiting, still in limbo. We are in limbo for a little while longer." "How much longer?" "Marcus thinks another 3 months, maybe 4. 4 months. Lena closed her eyes. "Okay." "Hey." Adrian tilted her chin up. "Look at me. This is happening. We're getting out. It's just slower than either of us wanted." "I know. But we're together. That's what matters." "Is it?" "Because you're gone 12 hours a day. Mila barely sees you, and when you are here, you're exhausted." Adrian's expression tightened. "What do you want me to do? Walk away right now and let everything collapse?" "No, I just—" She pulled away, frustrated. "I don't know what I want. I'm tired, Adrian. Tired of waiting, tired of being scared every time you leave that you won't come back. I always come back. You can't promise that." "I can try. Trying isn't enough." The words burst out, sharper than she'd intended. "I need guarantees. I need to know that this," she gestured between them, "is worth it. That we're not just going through the motions while you slowly get pulled back in." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Mila, sensing the tension, started to fuss. He picked her up automatically, soothing her. "You're right," he said finally. "This isn't sustainable. You and Mila sitting here waiting while I'm out there trying to untangle 15 years of my life." "I didn't say—" "No, you're right." He looked at her. "So here's what we're going to do. Starting tomorrow, I work half days. Marcus handles the rest." "Adrian, you can't." "Yes, I can. He's been pushing me to delegate more anyway. Says I'm micromanaging." Adrian shifted Mila to his other arm. "And every weekend, we do something together, as a family. No work, no phones, just us." Lena stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. This transition is important, but you're more important, both of you." He moved closer. "I'm not losing you again because I was too busy trying to fix the past." "What about Marcus? Won't he—" "Marcus will deal with it. That's literally his job." Adrian's voice was firm. I'm done choosing work over family. Done making you wait while I handle one more thing. If the transition takes longer because I'm not there 16 hours a day, fine. We'll adjust. Lena felt something loosen in her chest. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. She managed a smile. Half days and weekends. I can work with that. Good, because I have plans for this weekend. Oh? Mila's first trip to the zoo. I've been researching. Apparently the penguin exhibit is excellent. Despite everything, Lena laughed. You've been researching zoos? I'm a thorough person. You're insane. That too. He grinned, then grew serious. I mean it, Lena. Things are going to be different. Better. I'm holding you to that. Please do. They stood in the kitchen, Mila between them, and for the first time in weeks, Lena felt hope. Real hope. Not the desperate, fragile kind from before. But something solid. Something she could build on. 3 months later, Adrian signed the final papers. Marcus had done it. Found legitimate buyers for every piece of Adrian's empire. Structured the deal so clean that even forensic accountants couldn't find anything illegal. It had cost a fortune in lawyers and consultants, had required negotiations that made Adrian want to put his fist through walls, had meant giving up control of things he'd built from nothing, but it was done. How do you feel? Lena asked that night, after the lawyers left and the paperwork was filed. Adrian stared at the empty desk in his home office. Lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for years and finally set it down. Any regrets? Some. That empire was my life for a long time. He turned to look at her. But I'd do it again. Every signature, every compromise, every piece I gave away. Because this, he gestured around them, is worth more than all of that. Lena moved into his arms. What happens now? Now we live. Really live. No looking over our shoulders, no enemies waiting, just life. Sounds boring. Sounds perfect. They held each other in the quiet office, listening to Mila babble to herself in the next room. I have something for you, Adrian said after a while. Oh? He pulled a small box from his desk drawer. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond he'd given her the first time. I know we're technically still married, he said, but I thought I wanted to ask properly this time. No pressure, no running, just us. Lena's breath caught. Lena Carter, will you marry me? Again? For real this time? She looked at the ring, then at him, saw not the criminal boss or the broken man in the hospital bed, but just Adrian, flawed and trying and impossibly hers. Yes, she whispered. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. They didn't have a big ceremony, just them, Mila, Marcus, and a judge, who asked no questions. Lena wore a simple white dress. Adrian wore a suit without blood on it. Mila wore a tiny flower crown and tried to eat it halfway through. It was imperfect and chaotic and absolutely perfect. I do, Lena said when asked. I do, Adrian echoed. And this time, when they kissed, it felt like a beginning instead of an ending. 2 years passed in a blur of normal things. Mila's second birthday. Her third. First words became full sentences. Terrible twos became slightly less terrible threes. Adrian learned to cook, badly, but enthusiastically. Lena went back to school, studying art history like she'd always wanted. They fought sometimes. About stupid things. Whose turn it was to do dishes, whether Mila needed a jacket, what color to paint the living room. Normal couple things. They also fought about harder things. About Adrian's nightmares. About Lena's lingering fear whenever a car followed them too long. About the security detail Adrian refused to completely dismantle. But they worked through it. Together. Marcus visited monthly, bringing reports on how the old empire was doing under new management. Most of it was good news. Some organizations had gone legitimate. Others had been absorbed by less violent operations. A few had imploded spectacularly, but that wasn't Adrian's problem anymore. On Mila's 4th birthday, they threw a party. Kids from her preschool ran around the backyard, hopped up on sugar and chaos. Parents made awkward small talk while keeping one eye on their children. Normal suburban life. This is bizarre, Marcus murmured to Adrian. You, hosting a kid's birthday party. It's called growth. It's called domestication. Same thing. They watched Lena help Mila blow out her candles. The little girl was so excited she could barely stand still. She's good for you, Marcus observed. Both of them are. I know. You happy? Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering. Yeah, I really am. Good. You deserve it. After everything I've done? Especially after everything you've done. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Redemption's real, Adrian. You're proof. Later that night, after the guests left and Mila crashed from sugar overload, Adrian and Lena sat on the back porch. She had fun, Lena said. She ate her weight in cake. Worth it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies in the yard. Do you ever miss it? Lena asked. The power, the control, all of it? Adrian considered the question honestly. Sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about how simple things were when I just took what I wanted. And then I remember what that cost, what I almost lost. He took her hand. This is better. Harder, but better. Even the terrible threes, especially the terrible threes, Lena laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. I love you. I love you too. Think we'll make it, long term? I think we already have. Everything else is just details. 5 years after Volkov's death, Lena found a letter. It was in a box of Adrian's old things tucked away in the attic. She wasn't snooping, just looking for Christmas decorations. But there it was, an envelope with her name on it in Adrian's handwriting. She almost didn't open it, almost put it back and pretended she'd never seen it. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page dated from right after the divorce. Lena, it began. If you're reading this, something's gone wrong. Either I'm dead or I've broken my promise to stay away or the world's gone to hell. Whatever the reason, there are things you need to know. Her hands shook as she continued reading. I loved you from the moment I met you. You were working at that coffee shop, trying so hard to be invisible, and all I could see was you. Everything else faded. For the first time in my life, I wanted something that wasn't power or control. I wanted you. Tears blurred her vision. I knew marrying you was selfish, knew I was dragging you into darkness. But I did it anyway because I was weak and you made me feel human. For 3 years, you were the only good thing in my life, and I destroyed it because I was too proud to ask for help, too scared to admit that I couldn't protect you from my world. The next paragraph made her breath catch. I know about the baby, about Mila. My people have been watching, and I've seen the photos. She's beautiful, has your smile and my eyes, and I'll never forgive myself for not being there, for not holding her, for not being the father she deserves. Lena wiped her eyes, reading on. If I'm dead, there's money, millions set aside for you and her. Use it, build a life, be happy. And tell Mila, tell her I loved her even though I never got to meet her. Tell her I would have given anything for just 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute. The last line broke her. And Lena, I'm sorry. For all of it. For loving you when I shouldn't have. For letting you go when I should have fought. For being too broken to be what you needed. You deserved better than me. You still do. But if there's an afterlife, if there's any justice in the universe, I'll spend it loving you from a distance the way I should have done in life. Always yours, Adrian. Lena sat in the dusty attic, holding a letter written by a man who thought he'd never see her again, and cried. Not from grief, from gratitude, because he had seen her again. They'd gotten their second chance, and unlike the broken man who'd written this letter, the Adrian downstairs was whole, or at least working on it. She folded the letter carefully and went downstairs. Adrian was in the living room, helping 9-year-old Mila with homework. They were arguing about math in that way they always did, both stubborn, both convinced they were right. Dad, that's not how you do long division. It is in my day. Your day is over, old man. I'm 38, exactly. Ancient. Lena leaned against the doorway, watching them. Her family. Her impossible, imperfect, beautiful family. Adrian looked up, seeing her expression. You okay? Yeah. She smiled through tears. Just grateful. For what? For this. For you. For second chances. He stood, moving to her. What brought this on? She handed him the letter. Adrian's face went through several expressions as he read: pain, regret, recognition. When he finished, he looked at her with wet eyes. I was in a dark place when I wrote that. I know. I meant every word. I know that too. Lena took his hand. But you're not that man anymore. No? No, you're the man who helps with homework and burns dinner and reads bedtime stories in funny voices. You're Mila's dad, my husband. You're here. Adrian pulled her close. Because you gave me a chance I didn't deserve. We gave each other chances. Dad? Mom? Are you guys being gross again? Mila's voice was exasperated. They laughed, pulling apart. Little bit, Adrian admitted. Can you be gross after you helped me with problem 7? It's hard. Sure, sweetheart. He went back to the couch. Lena watched him explain fractions to their daughter. Patient, present, completely ordinary. This was the life she'd dreamed of in that diner in Oregon, the one she'd thought was impossible. And somehow, they'd made it real. That night, after Mila was in bed, Adrian and Lena lay together in the darkness. Do you think she'll understand? Lena asked quietly. When she's older? About who you used to be? I hope so, but if she doesn't, I'll explain. Tell her the truth. All of it? All of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. She deserves to know. She might hate you. She might. But she'll know I was honest. Adrian shifted, pulling Lena closer. What about you? Do you ever regret it? Giving me another chance? Sometimes, when you burn dinner, I'm getting better. You're really not. They laughed quietly. But seriously, Lena said, no, I don't regret it. This life, us, it's worth everything it took to get here. Even the running? Even the running, because it led us back to each other. Adrian kissed her forehead. I love you. I love you too. They fell asleep tangled together, safe and whole and home. Years continued to pass. Mila grew into a sharp, confident teenager who inherited her father's intensity and her mother's compassion. She knew about Adrian's past. They'd told her when she turned 13, laying out the whole ugly truth. She'd been quiet for a long time after. Then asked, Are you still that person? No, Adrian had said, but I was, and I can't change that. But you're trying to be better? Every day. Mila had nodded. Okay, that's enough. And it was. She went to college, came home for holidays, brought home a girlfriend who made her happy, built a life that had nothing to do with crime or violence or the darkness her father had escaped. Adrian and Lena grew older together, gray hair and reading glasses and comfortable routines. They still fought sometimes, still had nightmares sometimes, still looked over their shoulders sometimes. But mostly, they just lived. One evening, when Mila was 25 and Adrian was pushing 60, Lena found him in his office. He was looking at old photos, the one from their first wedding, pictures of baby Mila, the house in Oregon he'd never seen but had protected from afar. Getting nostalgic? She asked. A little. Thinking about choices. Good ones or bad ones? Both. He pulled her onto his lap. They were too old for this, but he did it anyway. Thinking about the moment I signed those divorce papers, how it felt like the end of everything. It kind of was. And the beginning of everything else. He kissed her temple. You know what I realized? What? I thought letting you go was the brave thing, the right thing. But it was actually the cowardly thing, running from my feelings, from my responsibilities, from the chance to be better. You didn't know that then. No, but I know it now. He held her closer. The brave thing was what you did. Running, yes, but running toward something, toward our daughter, toward a future. We were both running, just in different directions. And somehow we ran back to each other. Lena rested her head on his shoulder. You think Mila will have kids someday? Maybe. She's got time. I'd like to be a grandma, spoil them rotten. You'd be terrible at it, too practical. Says the man who researched penguin exhibits. That was important research. They sat in the comfortable silence of people who'd spent decades together, who'd survived hell and built heaven from the ashes. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For fighting for us. For changing. For being here. He turned her face to his. Thank you for letting me. For seeing something worth saving when everyone else saw a monster. You were never a monster, just lost. And you found me. We found each other. They kissed, slow and sweet, in the home they'd built from blood and love and impossible choices. Outside, the world continued turning. Inside, two people who shouldn't have worked, who shouldn't have survived, held each other and counted their blessings. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no perfect ending, no complete redemption, no erasure of the past. But it was real, and real was enough. Years later, when Lena was old and Adrian older still, when Mila had children of her own and the world had moved on from the men Adrian used to know, Lena would sometimes think back to that night in Sisters, Oregon. The night she'd walked away carrying their daughter. The night she'd thought she'd never see Adrian again. And she'd think about the letter he'd written, the one where he'd said goodbye from a distance. But he hadn't stayed distant. He'd come back, fought for them, changed for them, chose them over everything else. That was love, she'd realized. Not the romance novel kind, not the easy kind, the kind that survived darkness, that chose to heal instead of hide, that built something new from broken pieces. In the end, their story wasn't about a mafia boss and the woman who ran from him. It was about two imperfect people who loved each other enough to try, to fail, to try again, and to keep trying until trying became living. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.